Tennessee engineers that Ryan put together. We also have the roads, the 2018 roads program summary. I have some of that information in here, but these are the accurate numbers. Mine are some of the early numbers because I didn't have them at the time when we put this together. And we do have out for the audience, if you haven't had a chance, there are some of the presentations up here on the front row chair, as well as the map, color map that shows which of the streets for the different scenarios we're going to be talking about later on. And so with that, I'm going to go quickly to a presentation that's going to kind of catch us up to where we're at today. Turn that over. So yes, we are looking next year now for Roads 2019. Tonight we're going to talk about what's been accomplished, what funding is available going forward, a review of the payment evaluation conducted last year, and then ultimately the alternatives for the 2019 program rather than the 2018. There's been a lot done in the last 3 years here in Lincoln Park with roads. And if you look in 2016-17, we did over almost $1.3 million in reconstruction of a little over a third of a mile of roads. Did $1.4 million in mill and resurfacing that covered 1.65 miles of road, and nearly a mile of concrete sectioning, which garnered us about $835,000 spent on that. In addition, over that 2-year period, we spent another 1.3, nearly 1.4 on utility repairs, intersection rebuilds, and joint sealing. And all these are the different methods that we've talked to you about in the past that we need to be doing on an annual basis to bring the condition of our roads to a higher level. Last year, or the current year, I should say, we spent another $565,000 on a little over a third of a mile of road reconstruction, 2 roads this year. Actually, okay, 527. I didn't have the distance on that for the mill and resurfacing, so you may have to refer to what Ryan put together. And then concrete sectioning, another 482,000. Plus, we did 852,000 in utility repairs, intersection rebuilds, and joint sealing. And 495,000 of that was spent on utility repairs alone. And you might recall last year we had a lengthy conversation about the need to do things the right way. And one of the things that we've committed to is fixing those utility repairs. So when we have a water leak, a sewer issue, a catch basin breakdown, going out and actually repairing it the right way, make sure that those roads don't deteriorate as quickly as what they've done in the past. So a lot of money is spent on just that alone, but it's something that we need to be doing. In total, over the last 3 years, we've spent over $7.3 million in road projects. And, you know, it was something I didn't think about when you're kind of looking at those together or apart each year, but, you know, that's quite a bit of money in a 3-year period that we've spent. But unfortunately, as you might recall from last year, we have a great need. You know, in last year's re-rating that was done of our roads, only 14.5% of those are considered good in the 7 to 10 rating. And the fortunate part is it's, you know, less than $1 million to get those all taken care of. Unfortunately, 52.2% of our streets are in the fair rating. And to bring those up to the level that we believe they should be would cost us $50.8 million. And then the last group, which is a third of our streets, 33.3%, are in the poor, the 1 to 4 rating. And that would take, again, another $51 million to fix. So put it in context, I guess, to actually bring our roads to the level that we all would like is going to cost us $102 million to do that. We spent, as I said in the current year, a little over $1.5 million to accomplish that. So it's going to take us a long time at the rate that we're going to be able to fix the roads to the level that everybody would like. We are spending, again, on the average, about $1.5 million a year in road resurfacing, reconditioning, reconstruction. You know, there is additional money being spent on those utility repairs, and a lot of that money is actually coming out of the water and sewer fund, because that's the reason why we have to do the utility repairs, are for those services. But again, unfortunately, there's a large number. And if you remember in last year's discussion, Ryan had put together for us this analysis that showed that at the rate we're going, you know, we're never going to catch up. In fact, we're falling further and further behind. And it would take, in the magnitude, I think, $5-6 million a year over a long period of time to catch us up to where we need to be, where we're actually gaining on it and not falling behind. And I don't know if you have any comments on that one.
I guess just to add to that, I mean, $102.6 million, that's based on 2017 dollars. The costs are always increasing. You know, last year we didn't see much of an increase in concrete prices, but in the 2 years prior to that, we saw 10 to 15% increases just in concrete pricing. So you never know what could happen in the future. But that price is not going to go down. It's going to continue to go up if nothing is done.
Unfortunately. So it's a never-ending battle that we have. So with that as kind of the background for the upcoming year, we started working with Hennessy Engineers a few months ago, where they put together a number of different options for staff as well as the DPS subcommittee to look at, talk about, and kind of round out. Ultimately led to 4 options that we're looking at. I think it was about a month and a half ago, and we narrowed that down to what we believe are the 2 best options to recommend to council. And at some point, we're going to be asking you, Mayor and Council, to select from these 2 different options so we can begin the engineering and get these out to bid as soon as possible for spring construction.
Mayor, through the chair, to Matt, where are we as far as our bonding?
So we have been trying to get S&P to do a rating, and a midterm, interim rating, re-rating of the city. We have submitted to them all the information that they've asked. I actually reached out to them a week and a half ago to find out what the status is. They have not responded back yet. So at this point, we're still not in investment grade rating to be able to go out into the bond market.
So we're not really going to get ahead of the game until that happens.
Yeah.
What about the state has got some money for cities that are coming out of receivership? Have we have any information on that?
We, I think the first year that I was here, that we may have applied for some road projects. They haven't been too forthcoming through the financially stressed cities, villages, townships to money towards that. If you look at what's been funded, the first year was a lot of public safety funding. The second year and even the third year, there was quite a bit of water-related projects. You might remember there was a project with that. And actually, you know, we were fortunate because we did get funding that we're still working to complete for water line project. In this past, there was again, I think it was kind of water and up again. So there just really has streets funded through that.
Yeah, I think this is the 5th year they're doing that grant program. They have not awarded any street projects at all. It's been all underground infrastructure, public safety, work to municipal buildings, and street lighting. Those have basically been the items that they've been approving in the past 4 years. Plus, in past years, they've had $5 million available to spread out to those communities, and this year there's only $2.5 million. So not as many projects are going to get awarded this year.
You know, what we didn't talk about in terms of money being spent, we also received funding ultimately from the federal government, you know, but we are just this year, Emmons Street, and I think that was about $1 million project.
Yeah. Yes.
And the year before that, we had work done on Moran, which was part of the Goddard Moran project. There's, what else? A missing one, I thought.
The county did work out here on Southfield Road, obviously.
Right.
The county's done some work here in the city in the last couple of years as well. I guess as far as grants, obviously every year we submit to the Wayne County Federal Aid Committee for street projects, for for those major streets that are eligible for federal aid assistance, and they do pay 81% of the construction costs for those projects. So we got Emmons this year. We did get awarded for River Drive from Ford Boulevard up to Emmons. That'll be done in 2020. And last year, we did apply for 3 asphalt streets that are in poor to fair condition to be done in the 2021 season. We didn't make the award on that. We're competing against every community except for Detroit and one county. 60-some projects get it roughly every year, and they award 5 or 6. So the 3 projects submitted last year, Champaign, from Fort to Dix, London west of Dix, and then Harrison on the east end of the city. They were in the middle of the list, but we're going to continue to apply for those each year. Obviously, those streets are going to continue to deteriorate, and they'll move further up the list. But right now, we're looking at if that program, the soonest would be 2022 to get anything done on those streets.
Yes, sir, go ahead.
I want to ask Ryan. Ryan, what's the criteria? You say this about state, and how do we get to the top of that list?
It's based on the rating of the street, the condition of the street, use of the street, traffic counts. Those are primarily the.
Who does those?
We submit the applications, the city or our office submits the applications to the county then evaluates all those streets and determines the rating.
Mayor, Mr. Mayor, through the chair.
Yes, sir, go ahead.
Matt, didn't I read somewhere that the state's supposed to start giving back some of the revenue funding that they collect?
So, the 2 years ago, with the changes for road funding in the state, with the increase in the gas tax, they started to give cities more money back through the Act 51. And, we are seeing, and actually this upcoming year, so 2019-20, and going forward, we're going to see larger jumps in the amount of money we're receiving from them. This year, what we decided to do, as you might recall, in this year's budget, is increase the staffing so we can do more road work internally in terms of pothole repair and management and things like that. And so we're not getting a large amount of money additional into the reconstruction phase. So we're going to be, for the next 5 years, in that 1.5 to 1.7, depending upon what gets spent out in each previous year. So like this year, I think we had, I can't remember, 90,000 or so under budget.
Yeah, yes,
Approximately.
roughly, yes.
And so that money's going to go back in for next year's project. And as you see here, in the options, it's a little bit higher than what we've been doing in a planned manner. So again, if we have a good bid, more money will be freed up. We can do more streets in the next year as well. But because of the increase in the staffing, an increase in just the day-to-day costs, we're not seeing a large increase going into the construction programs. But it's a little. I mean, it's
Well,
growing.
everybody has to realize that the money you have left over, you're doing other streets next year.
Exactly.
So a lot of people don't believe that. They figure you can take that money and pocket it.
Yeah, no, what we've done is we've created, although it's a little bit of an accounting nightmare for our auditors, we've created effectively a capital improvement within our Act 51 monies. And so that money is there every year, and that allows us to start the engineering early. It allows us actually to start some of the construction before July 1st, so we can get a little bit better pricing on our projects and get them moving along a little bit quicker. And
So
this year, we started at least 1 or 2, I think our utility and our contracting, or sectioning, concrete sectioning started before July 1st.
They started in May, yeah.
Through the chair.
Yes, sir, go ahead.
Okay, let me know if I'm jumping ahead or, we now have 2 spray patch machines, right?
Nope, just have one.
Okay, I thought we had, did we buy the second one?
We had another company come in to do
Okay.
the spray.
All right, so we have 1 spray patch machine, and, are you gonna get into details with that, or how much we can use that, in these, 2 options?
Actually, we're just going to be focusing on the road programs for the upcoming year. So what?
Okay,
would
so
be-
that's just gonna be general
yeah,
maintenance then, okay?
yeah, that falls. I mean, it's important.
It is, yeah.
I think it's something that we don't talk a lot about that. We don't talk about the crack and joint sealing. These are all important. They help keep roads that are better from being worse quickly, and it allows us to concentrate the majority of our monies like this on reconstruction and asphalt and resurfacing the concrete section. But again, it's a matter of staffing, keeping people out there, doing what we can to utilize those other services. We did have a company come in this past year for the patch, with the patch machine. We really, after we looked at it, we didn't really get a good bang for the buck. We effectively, for $35,000, did 2 roads. And for a similar amount, or what we think we would need to spend, which is in that, $150,000 to $200,000 to get a lot done, we'd probably be better off just doing a mill and fill rather than that. We have a long-lasting road, with money that we're spending on. So I think we're not going to be doing the contractor route next year, but we need to get, internally, we need to get that going a little bit more, I think, over the course of the year.
So John has at least one person that's fully trained on that spray.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, just finish that. So everybody who's going to watch that home during rains, it really matters because the section of southbound electric from O'Connor down Southfield, that was patched 2 years ago now. I take that every, and so 2 years of spray patch, and it's still in really good shape. So that spray patch matters. Thank you.
Okay.
So at this point, I'm going to over to Ryan, so he maybe talk a little bit about, you came up with the roads that you have on the different scenarios, go over the 2 scenarios.
So as Matt mentioned, there's several different scenarios that we've developed. I mean, there's several different projects we can look at. Based on the pavement evaluation that we did last year, using those ratings, looking at the location of the streets, the use of the streets, again, traffic counts if we can, put a rating to each street segment, and basically go from there. So that's how we've been basing the projects the last couple of years, starting as far as our reconstructs and our asphalt resurfacing projects, just starting at the top of the list at the ones that are rated as a 1 and just go down that list. So for the reconstruct projects, for both scenarios, they're the same. We're looking at New York Street from Hazel to Helen as the local street reconstruct, and Howard Street from Old Goddard to Ford Boulevard is the major reconstruct for next year. The difference between the 2 scenarios that are presented here are in the asphalt resurfacing, where scenario 1, we're looking at doing Lafayette Street from Champaign up to Southfield, which is a long stretch. What we've tried to do in the past is try to spread the work out as much as we can throughout the city, do segments here and there so that each area of the city is being addressed. With doing Lafayette as a long stretch, we're not doing as many other streets. So scenario 2 takes out Lafayette and adds some smaller streets in there. So scenario 1, we have 4 different streets that we're looking at doing asphalt resurfacing, whereas scenario 2, there's 6 different streets that we're looking at roughly the same cost. And then the concrete sectioning is chosen. Basically, those are streets that are rated a 4 or a 5 in fair condition, where there's certain concrete panels that have deteriorated that we can remove and replace. The entire street does not need to be removed and replaced. So again, we use the same rating system, start with the 4s and go down the list. So there's some differences here in both scenarios too, but roughly at the same cost. Depending on what scenario you want to go with. I mean, we can always move some streets around depending on what everyone's pleasure is. But scenario 1 does have 9 streets associated with it, where scenario 2 has 10 streets that we would be addressing. These scenarios do not include the joint and crack sealing. We would do joint and crack sealing like we've done in the past couple years. We usually look at about a $50,000 budget to do that. We did $60,000 worth of work this year, and that did cover almost 2.5 miles of streets. It's a pretty inexpensive preventive maintenance. To get 2.5 miles for $60,000, that's pretty good. If you look at that 2008 road program summary that I passed out, compare that to a concrete reconstruct, where based on this year's project, if we were to do a mile of reconstruct, $2.3 million. So if we can save those streets that are in good and fair condition and continue to joint seal them and spray patch them and extend the life, that it's definitely worth it. It's definitely worth it. And then obviously we get some CDBG money every year too to do some road projects, which council has already approved us to move forward with the design of 4 intersections along Lafayette Street in the north end of the city too. I think that was around $150,000 to $200,000 worth of intersection work there as well. So that'll be completed here next year as well. I guess I'll open it up to any questions that anybody has on the 2 scenarios that we've presented. I guess in addition to that, we also were looking at if the costs were to come in lower than what we expect, we would also put an alternate into the bids too to also do sectioning on Allard Street from Dix to Winchester, which is rated borderline 3, 4. I mean, that street, if that doesn't get sectioned in the near future, that's going to become a reconstruct. That street along with Winchester is deteriorating pretty rapidly. So that's the next one on our list if we were to continue down. So if we come in at a lower cost, we can always do that street too. That would be the next one to do.
Well, I did drive all the ones from scenario 1 this afternoon before the meeting, and there are some rough roads in that, but particularly New York, but I thought that a couple of them weren't really in need until I actually drove down them and saw the conditions of them.
Sure. I guess I'll state too that we're trying to do a 50-50 with major and local roads too. So there's several local streets that may be in worse condition that aren't on the list for this coming year compared to the major streets that are on the list, because we want to address both major and local streets. That there's 2 separate funds for that mixes for asphalt. There are some techniques we've used in other communities. Full depth reclamation is one where we pulverize the existing asphalt and use it as the new base and inject it with Portland cement and let it stabilize, and then pave new asphalt over that. That's used more in rural conditions or where you've got asphalt streets with open ditching, which you don't have here. But we have used that in other communities as well. That's another way to recycle materials as well. But as far as using full recycle, I really don't have much experience with that.
Okay. So I would like, just for everybody's knowledge, if we could all maybe look into that maybe next year. That's going to take some research, find out if it's price worthy to maybe do something like that. Also, I noticed on both of these scenarios, they all need work. There's no way to say, oh, we shouldn't do this one, let's do this one, etc. I get that. But if you recall, over the past year, there's been 2 residents up here specifically talking about their streets, and neither one of them are on either of these lists. So I think that it's important that we listen to the residents who have came forward. One of those was on Rio, and the other one, if I recall, was on Cleophas.
Wilson, actually.
Was it Wilson?
Wilson, yes.
Because I remember there was a gentleman up here talking about having to wanting to bust down a wall and use a parking lot to get onto Southfield, which is why I remember Cleophas.
Oh, okay.
Was that Philomene? Okay. Perfect. But neither of, like the Rio one is not on here. So I think that it's important that we listen to the residents throughout the year. So Rio is not on here, but she's been to the council meeting twice to talk about her road. So that's just something I want to keep in mind when we consider the different scenarios and see if there's a way to switch out a road for a citizen who has been here to talk about it, who has emailed you, called you. You as council members have those emails and phone calls that we don't know about. So I just want to keep that in mind as well when we choose scenarios and roads. Thank you.
I will say that we in my office receive a lot of calls every year about roads. Yes. And we try to do this in as scientific as a way as possible, because if we just give it into emotion, we end up not necessarily spending the dollars the best way for the amount of traffic. I mean, I've talked to a number of residents that are on roads that basically the only people using them are the residents that live on the roads. And, that weighs against, a road like Champaign for it to park. I mean, the traffic volumes are dramatically different and affect a lot of people, but the cost to redo the roads are the same. And, we try to to pick these roads based upon not only the condition, but also the volume of traffic and what's going to give the biggest benefit to all residents within the city. And that's where it's very difficult to do, because again, you know, I've usually when residents are calling in about a road, I'm driving out there on their road just to see what it's like, just so I know for a fact what it's like. And that's a hard thing. I know it's a hard thing for council members to understand this, but again, if what we end up doing is fixing, you know, try to fix everybody's road, we really are not going to be fixing anybody's roads, unfortunately. And the volumes really are a big, you know, force in making the decisions on this, because again, if you look at a road that has 50 cars a day versus one that has 4,000 or 5,000 a day, we really need to spend money on the one that's 4,000 or 5,000 a day. So it's difficult. And, you know, kind of answering about people that come to speak, you know, we did put the Wilson blocks, 2 blocks that are to be finished on Wilson as part of this. So I think, you know, we're trying to address as they come up, but again, looking at volumes and looking at where we're going to get the best benefit for the dollars we're spending makes it difficult to, just because someone says my road needs fixed, because everyone says that, and it's true, except for, you know, maybe Pagel now and Riverbank and some of the roads that we've fixed.
Section to pick.
Yes.
Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, on this map here, they got 3 lines. One's red, blue, and green, but I can't make out what that writing is there. What does them stand for?
The reds would be the concrete reconstruction projects that would be proposed. The blue is the asphalt resurfacing, and the green, the concrete sectioning,
Concrete.
which is the patch repair program.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Now, it seems some few city council meetings ago, it was mentioned about why they don't fix more potholes, and I guess there's 2 funds to fix roads. One is a capital improvement fund or something. They can't use that money for potholes, and there was another fund they can't use the money for. So I guess the potholes are fixed out of the general fund. Is that right? Did I understand that right?
No, we use our Act 51 money, so that's the major and local roads funds that goes towards pothole repair. We do put money, actually say we may have put some money for the joint sealing came out of the general fund, but the majority of pothole repair is coming out of the roads, the 2 roads funds that we have.
Yeah, because some of the politicians now, they're talking, they want to buy votes by telling the people they're for cutting the taxes in Lansing. And I'm against any taxes cut in Lansing until the Lansing gives back to the cities the money that they took away. I think we figured out it was around $5 million we lost from Lincoln Park. 1 year was over $1 million. So I hope they forget about that and before they start talking about cutting taxes, to give that money back to the cities that they withheld when things got bad there around 2008 and 09 and that. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Annette DiMaggio from Elliott Street. And Mr. Koppler, I'd just like to ask about some of these numbers again, because I didn't get a chance to write them down. On the fare rating, what was that, that we spent on those roads? You said like 50, or how much would it cost to fix the fare roads?
Again, this is in 2017 dollars. The estimate was approximately $50.8 million.
Okay, and then 51 million for poor?
Correct.
What was the one for good rating?
A little less than $1 million.
Okay, the 7.3 million, can you tell me what different sources we received that income from, please?
Yeah, so those monies were primarily from the major and local roads. There were also money that came out of the water sewer fund for the utility repairs and CDBG.
Okay. Do you happen to know the total of miles of roads in the city of Lincoln Park?
Yeah, it's approximately 117.
117.
117 miles?
Yes.
Okay. I wanted to just make a couple comments. I'm a biker and a walker, and I do ride a lot in Allen Park, Wyandotte, and Lincoln Park. Lincoln Park is the only city of those three that I'm riding along, and there's a curb. Okay? I don't find that in Wyandotte and Allen Park, so as we're doing these things, I'm not sure why we still have curbs. I thought they should all be handicapped by now, so I wanted to mention that. And I want to kind of piggyback on what this gentleman said. Things have really changed. We're not getting our revenue sharing, and they cut business tax. They talk about they want to cut other taxes. Would I like to have taxes cut? Yes. We can't continue on. We're not even going to be keeping up, let alone fixing our roads. I want to make a recommendation to council, the mayor, the city manager. I'd like you to consider getting together with the other 17 communities downriver, getting a plan together and going to Lansing and making some demands that we are getting our revenue sharing and that we get some service here downriver. Then possibly you extend that to inviting Oakland County and other cities and counties to join you. We're going through a revolution in the United States here. And you might say, hey, that's not the job of council, and I know we have a couple.
Listen, that,
Yes?
okay, that's not the pulpit for this right now. We're talking about specifically this road program.
Right.
Okay?
But this way, we need to go and fight for our money that we've spent. Thank you very much.
Anyone else? Yes, sir.
Ed Schroeder, I live on Philomene. I was here earlier about the roads, but I don't believe in the squeaky wheel gets the grease. I think we leave that up to the professionals to decide which streets need it. You know, like mine needs it bad. I drive down it every day. I could care less about 3 blocks down that I don't use, even though it's bad. But I just wanted to speak in favor of number 1 here, because I see where, you know, they're talking Lafayette all the way. I don't know how long ago it was. Might have been 10 years ago when Lafayette was ground up and kind of like rocks thrown down and, you know, a little bit of tar on top. And at the time, my kids were, you know, going to school here, and they're doing well now. But all of the sports and stuff, anybody coming from the north, they get off at Southfield, they come down Lafayette going to the high school, the middle school. And to me, that is a kind of star of our city when they come driving down here. You know, we were lucky enough to get some work done on Southfield Road, you know, so that's a whole lot better. But I just wanted to mention that I'm in favor of proposal number 1, because at least it does have my street name on it. But
Sean Stansberry. I just came up to answer Joyce's question about the road resurfacing with the different materials that they're using now. I haven't heard anything about plastic, but I did hear from a couple candidates that were running for governor about there's some different material with rubber and some other material they use. And I guess they did a section of 375 downtown, and it was like 10 years ago. And I guess it's, you know, obviously it's cement as well, but it's in really good shape. So her question was, is the price at the front end is a lot more money, but at the back end, you save a lot of money because you're not doing the repairs. you know, the pothole patching and all the other stuff. So, you know, if we look into it, it's a good idea, but, you know, like Matt said, I mean, we're barely going to be catching up trying to get everything done. So it's a great idea, but it's just, we've got 117 miles of roads, and realistically, I mean, if we had all the money, it would still take us 10 years to fix them all. So that's all I have to say. Thanks.
Anyone else? And we will,
Your Honor, it's not exactly pertaining to this, but it is. And I just have one quick question, and actually it's something Matt could do some research on. I was over in Taylor, and I know, I think it was Tom that mentioned it at one time. There is a new machine out there that can cut sections of cement out and then turn right around and pave like, and Taylor has one. I seen it with my own eyes, and I would just like the city to look into it and see how much that machine cost and what it can actually do, because I sat and watched it, and it was amazing to watch it.
okay, he has that noted, and there you go. Then we don't need a motion. We will call it into our study session.
Good.
Thank you, everyone, for your comments and your attention.
Very good.